so over being afraid. I've gone through the motions, I've been back and forth. I know that you're thinking you've heard this before. I don't know how to say it, so I'm just gonna say it, yeah. Fear you don't own me, there ain't no room in this story. And I ain't got time for you telling me what I'm not, like you know me. Well, guess what? I know who I am, I know I'm strong, and I am free, got my own identity. So fear you will never be welcome here. Take a minute, let it settle in. You probably never saw it coming. Something's gotta give, so I give up you. Oh, there's no room for you here, yeah, I've had enough. The no vacancy sign on my heart is lit up. In case you didn't hear it, here it is again. Oh, fear you don't own me.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome once again to Tea Time with Carol. I'm pouring the tea, and you know T stands for Tactical Education and Advice. I'm pouring it today with a wonderful woman who is, I consider her a friend and colleague, and I'll be introducing her in just a moment. But I want to welcome you into another episode of Tea Time, and I want you to come in, get comfortable, pour yourself a little tea. I don't know if you've got a little, I don't know what's good today. Find something that's maybe a little orange blossom today, or maybe a little lemon tea for if you're struggling with the pollen that's really accumulating in some areas. But get comfortable. I've fluffed up the pillows and I want you to draw nigh so that you can hear what we're talking about. I want to introduce you. I don't want to belabor this because I want to spend as much time as we can talking to my guest today. And this is the wonderful one and only Erica Jefferson, who is the CEO and founder of Be Wise, and that's B, capital B, letter B, WISE, W-I-S-E, which stands for Black Women in Science and Engineering. And that is, I think, is such a fabulous organization. She's been doing this since 2015 and really going around the country and mentoring and supporting women in this very, non-traditional area for women and for Black women in particular. And I am so glad to see more and more of our sisters getting involved in these areas. I happened to visit Tuskegee, the university, this past week, and was just so proud to see so many of our young women who were studying the sciences and zoology and veterinary medicine and just all kinds of scientific areas and doing very well in it too. So I think in no small part it's due to the work of Erica Jefferson, who is really out there, boots on the ground, really encouraging women to go for it. So help me welcome her. Erica, you with me?
I'm here. Thank you so much. What a fabulous introduction. Can you go everywhere I go?
Well, I feel like I'm following you. I'm stalking you on Facebook and LinkedIn, and loving what you're doing, because you're really very, very active in this area, which I really truly admire. For so long, I'm a bit older than you, and women really, as a student, I was not encouraged to study science. It was always, that's a little too difficult for you, and we weren't really focused too much on math. It was like, oh, you won't need that. Don't worry about that. And So to see things turning around, is really, really heartwarming. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. But if you would start, oh, sure, my pleasure. Would you start by telling us a little bit about you and how you got in this area? I know you've got an MBA from Georgia Tech and a bachelor's in chemical engineering. I don't even know what that is. So,
sure.
Tell us a little bit about you and, how you came to develop Be Wise.
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Chicago, and fairly early on I knew I had an interest in math and science, chemistry in particular, and was fortunate to get involved in two organizations that back during that time really encouraged underrepresented groups to go into these areas. The first one was Explorers, which is an offshoot of the Boy Scout. I hope it's still around. And what the Explorers did would bring people from industry into classrooms and various events around the city of Chicago to expose them to actual scientists and engineers. And when I attended one of those, I think maybe my sophomore year in high school, and I said, I want to be a chemist. And the person that was speaking said, no, you want to be a chemical engineer because that's where the money was. And then building on that, Inroads was, I think, very instrumental during that time in the mid to late 80s in grooming and preparing those of us who were interested in STEM fields, whether they were engineering or science or anything like that, even computers. We didn't call it IT back then. We called it computer science. And so I think both of those organizations during a really formative part of my life were very instrumental in encouraging me and giving me information about those fields. But still, when I look at what we had as a resource back then, it's nothing compared to what I'm seeing kids are getting exposed to. So in that regard, I'm hopeful. I'm happy to see certainly more people, organizations, schools encourage kids and have resources for them to explore, right? If you don't know what an oceanographer is, there's probably a program that could expose you to that. We did not have that. So I think there's a progression from your experience where you were maybe actively discouraged to, a few years later when we weren't discouraged, but we weren't prepared the way I see kids are today. So from there, studied chemical engineering, graduated from Louisiana State University, worked for several years, starting off with Amoco. So for people who remember Amoco, the gas station brand from back then, worked as a production engineer, which I liken to being in the military. It's a lot of hard work, and I think most suited for young people because you're climbing on things and under things, and you're dirty a lot. But I think that was very important in just teaching me kind of the foundation of engineering beyond what you learn in the classroom. So very fortunate to have that very early in my career, and then decided I think I want to do something beyond that, and got into sales, also in oil and gas, and was able to have a wonderful career and meet lots of people and expand, I think, come full circle, not just on the technical part of what I like to do, but also, the people part too. So from there, continued to get new and bigger positions, expanding my experience. And then I had a manager that was also a chemical engineer and said, finance is the language of business. So it's great you have this engineering degree, but you don't have a business degree or a business understanding, you're going to be limited in your career opportunity. So took that as a encouragement to go back and get my MBA, and have done so many things since then. And I think as I reflect back on that period, I'm not sure I would have even had the seed to start Be Wise had I not gone to that business school. So I think there is certainly a benefit to getting advanced degrees. Sometimes people think, everyone has an MBA or everybody has this. But I think what my experience in business school did is, here are kind of the makings of how you take something from ideation or idea into production and be able to generate revenue. So thank you to my Georgia Tech colleagues, fellow alumni, and then just continued onward with my career. And it wasn't really until 2014 and 2015 when I really had the idea just for gathering Black women in particular in the STEM fields. I don't even know if I had a name for it yet. And I really didn't know that some of the issues I've now come across that I've seen are pervasive for women in STEM in general, but Black women and women of color in particular was probably everybody's story. I said, well, I've had, kind of a winding career. I've done things in some areas where there aren't very many women, and I just assumed that was my journey. And after I started BeWise, I found out, wow, everybody's pretty much got that same story. It's just different faces, different company names, but very similar experiences, not getting the support and career progression that maybe they anticipated having when you look at their male peers, and thought, well, I may not be able to do a whole lot, but maybe I can help a few women in Houston where I was living at the time. And fast forward 4 years later, we've got over 1,500 members around the world, 6 chapters, Atlanta, Austin, Chicago, D.C., Houston, and San Diego, with 3 more to launch this year in Boston, Dallas, and New York. So, what was a small seed of an idea has now grown into a full-fledged plant, and couldn't be happier.
Wow, that is amazing. In such a short time, you've been able. But I think part of it says how great the need is.
Absolutely.
For this kind of a platform, where Black women can come together and kind of unify and share, the similar struggles. Because you're right. A lot of times we go through things and think, I'm the only one with this.
Only one.
And then you find out that it's replicated in, 15,000 other voices. We're all going through the same things together. So, oh my God, there's so many things off the top of my head that I want to ask you. But first I want to ask you about chemical engineering and what that looked like for you, what you do as a chemical engineer. And then I want to ask you about what are some of the similar struggles that, and similar stories that you're hearing over and over and over again.
Sure. So chemical engineering is probably, I would think, one of the most diverse disciplines in engineering because we get our hands into so many things. When I was looking at getting a degree in chemical engineering, it seemed much narrower. If you wanted to work in a refinery or a chemical plant, every once in a while we had someone branch out into something unusual like patent law, but it's kind of a multi-purpose, I think, engineering discipline because you could work in a plant, you could be a design engineer, you could work on the computer side, maybe in programmable logic. Of course, you can go into patent law. You could be a teacher, you could be a professor. So many different areas because we're kind of a catch-all. So electrical is obviously focused on electrical engineering and circuits and power, transmission and generation. Mechanicals are more, let's get things to work. Let's make sure these pieces of mechanical equipment are working correctly. Civils, of course, do municipal work, building bridges and things like that. So I always felt like chemicals got to see a lot more and do a lot of different things. So for my path, it was manufacturing. And, even when I moved into different areas, I still was, connected to operations and manufacturing, whether they were in the oil and gas industry or the power industry or food manufacturing. Still had that kind of basic understanding of how the operations come together, working with the electrical engineers to ensure you had power into the facility, working with mechanical engineers and bringing in the mechanical equipment to either provide the production equipment or, just the designing for the layout of the plant. So just a very, I think, diverse discipline. And, now I'm seeing more the interest in other fields. So I still think that chemical is kind of a very multi-dimensional discipline in engineering. So if I had to do it again and go back into engineering, I'd probably still do chemical. So that's chemical.
Okay.
And then your second question, I think, was in regards to, seeing similar patterns and other women engineers. Is that right?
Yeah, well, not just with engineers, but the women, that you're talking to, in STEM,
right.
period. What are some of the common themes that you're seeing?
I can't say they're too drastically different from the challenges that all women face, underrepresentation, sometimes lack of opportunities for moving up in companies. I think engineering and STEM in particular, because there's still so few of us getting these jobs and getting into senior roles, right? There's a ton of women in higher level roles in marketing and accounting and finance, but we're still, 15 to 20% of people working in engineering because I think it is so hard, especially early in your career. I was a manufacturing engineer, so I wore a uniform and a hard hat and steel-toe boots, and that's fine. We usually don't have any problems with the technical aspects, but when you don't have many people that look like you, whether it be by gender or ethnicity, it makes it hard, it makes it lonesome, it makes it isolating. So I think without someone there to mentor, advocate, sponsor, we're seeing the same type of problems, right? If you go to a company and you're the only female or one of a handful of females still working in 2019, you're probably going to have a problem moving up the company. I mean, that's just some anecdotal information. I don't have any hard numbers from my experience with people that I've known, but I know there are some numbers that we've gotten from the National Science Foundation that says we're cranking the women out in these STEM fields, but they're leaving as fast as they're coming in. And I think their last study said 40% of women overall leave STEM fields after 5 years.
Wow.
So in my estimation, as a numbers person, that's pretty bad. That means you've got a 40% failure rate. How can you ever grow when you're constantly replacing, right? As soon as you get them trained to the point where they're regular contributors to the performance of the company or the manufacturing facility, they're gone. Now, some of it maybe just decided to do something else, or maybe they wanted to start a family, but I just can't believe that if someone had a viable, exciting, fulfilling career that they would leave and not come back to the industry. But those are the numbers that we're seeing. I'm seeing that, like I said, anecdotally. We're being pushed out, whether it's deliberate and intentional or you're just in an environment where you don't feel valued. Either way, we're leaving. And I think my passion and one of the reasons I do what I do for BWise is because there is a lot of attention on kids, K through 12 in particular, but it's almost like there's no voice in speaking to those of us who've already made the commitment. We got the degrees. We got the jobs. We're trying to move up, not seeing that same focus or assistance on those of us who are actually working scientists and engineers.
I think, we had a guest on a couple of months ago that works in the space of changing an organization's culture. To be more accepting of, people who are different, than the traditional, And I think that's what it's going to take. We're going to continue to see these problems until, first of all, I think there are two things that are important. One, whoever is at the tippy top has to make this a priority. Because if the top, if it's not important to the top, it's not going to filter down to anybody else. Nobody else is going to care about it. And secondly, if there's a shift in the culture, and, one of the things that I'm doing now is training in the agency where I work about civility, very basic kinds of things, and the emphasis, instead of telling people, this is what the law says, and having employees try to figure out how they can run up to the very line of the law without crossing it, what we're trying to do is to focus more on behavior and align that behavior to the mission of the agency so that, people can kind of find a way to be enrolled in it and find, the result is folks are much more accepting of different. You stop seeing people as different,
Right.
Because you're much more aware of your behavior and aligning your behavior. If you say, this is our core value, then, you certainly want to reflect that in the things that you do and say. So, maybe there's a way of translating that onto the private side as well. I know that there are a number of government agencies who are really doing a lot of work in that space and trying to change, culture. So, on the private side, that would be good. I know that there are some companies that are very out front, with that being, a demonstrated, core value. But it sounds like there's a lot more work to be done if 40% of women are leaving within 5 years. I mean, that is a crazy figure.
And I rarely hear, folks focused on efforts with children speak about those numbers. I'm not sure they know, but that says you're creating, these very engaged, prepared children, but you've done nothing. So the kids, the teachers are working hard. The parents are working hard. We've done nothing on where they're going to work.
Right.
And, I know they're probably going to get questions or calls or emails, but it really boils down to butts and seats. I don't care how many diversity training or inclusion training you have at your organization. If you have 2 people of color, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And so I see this initial, we've got to get the unconscious bias training. We've got to get this training. It's to me, you're doing that to train people on what they should already be doing. What about the people who are there? How are you helping those people grow and develop? Right? Once again, the people who need the help the most are getting none of it.
Right.
And so I am a vocal advocate of put some of that money up. If you've got $1.50 of that should go to ongoing learning and development for your existing employees. You don't even know those kids. That's the thing I always, talk to people about. You don't even know those kids. You walk right past Mary's office. And you don't have a training program for her, but you're going to go to a school 5 miles away and help some kids you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it begins at home. I know exactly what you're saying. That is very, very true. And I think we're saying the same thing. There has to be a shift in the culture of the organization where sexual harassment is not okay. Racist jokes are not okay. And until we get to that point, you're going to still, we're going to continue to see the same kind of turnover.
Absolutely. If you have 2 people of color working in your organization, it's going to take you a long time to convince people that's not okay.
Right.
Why would they think that's not okay? There's nobody here to complain about it. Right. So you have to meet people at their need. And I'm hoping that our work will continue to get attention from both government agencies, universities, and corporations to say, if you needed someone to build a road to your plant, you wouldn't send your accountants out there and start dumping cement or asphalt. You would hire somebody to do that.
Right.
So if the need is important enough, let's get some people who can do that work. And those of us in, like you said, on boots on the ground, that are doing that. There are many other organizations that are out doing incredible things to diversify STEM and tech. And one of my pet peeves is stop asking people to do things that you value and that you can't do yourself for free.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's well, that's an oxymoron, because if you value it, you're willing to pay for it.
Right.
So that's the thing. That kind of tells you if people are looking for a lot, for free, then it's not a true value.
Absolutely. So we want our members and women in general to be prepared, right? Be the best civil engineer you can be. Know everything backwards and forwards, so there could be no, we would have loved to have hired her, but she doesn't have these qualifications, right? Let's be so prepared that those excuses just don't fly. So that's a lot of what we do at BY.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, because that was exactly my next question. I wanted to ask you to drill down the kind of work that you're doing at BWise, and what does that look like for someone who's just coming out of school with a STEM degree and maybe is new on the job, and also for women who are mid-career or executive level. Do you have different levels of service, and just how are you putting it all together, I guess?
Sure. So our target demographic has always been folks in the mid to senior part of the pipeline, because that's when it gets really sticky, right? So you're an intern or an entry level. Look at this. Oh, they're new. They just graduated, right? Those same people who are willing to take you out to lunch and mentor you and give you advice when you're very early in your career, and you catch up to them, you get an MBA. Now you're at the same level. They're not so willing to take you out to lunch and mentor you or talk to you and tell you what's going on. It becomes much more competitive when you get to the middle part of the pipeline for anything, not just STEM, but I feel like STEM has so many other things going on that, that's, I think, an area of focus. If you could fix that, if you could fix getting more women to stay and grow in STEM, you'd probably fix all the other functions as well. But for us, we found that there certainly is a social component, especially for women that are, 25 years after I graduated, still the only amazes me that I hear, I'm the only female, or I'm only Black female. Still in 2019, we still only got one.
Yeah.
So I think having safe spaces or counter spaces where you can basically exhale, oh my gosh, another person that understands what I've gone through. So that was probably when we first started the bulk of what we did, just having a place to just have people understand your journey, your experiences. But as I started growing, or as BY started growing and we met more and more women, and I'm looking, all over LinkedIn and at people's profiles, and I'm like, we just don't have these skill sets, right? There's one thing to not, promote, women based on, unfairness or unconscious bias, but then there's a whole different category if they're not prepared for those levels, right? You want to get to strategy. You want to work in strategy. You've got to do a lot of stuff before you get to that. You've got to be, depending on what part of STEM, you may have had to work in various different functions so that you can have a understanding of the whole corporation in order to work in strategy. And I'm seeing that, I'm assuming what I'm doing in BWise is a microcosm of what's out there, is we're just not getting those projects, those opportunities to experience those things, work on those teams. And so when it comes time to promote, and they're looking for folks who've got that background experience, the knowledge, we don't have it, so we're not getting those roles. So I said, well, I can't necessarily supplement what your company does for learning and development, but let's at least expose our members or anyone who comes to our events to emerging technology. So, we'll give you a bite-sized bit of information on blockchain and have some resources where you can go and learn more about it, various different emerging technologies, and maybe an opportunity at your company to say, hey, I went to this 3D printing event, and that's something I want to get into. Are there any upcoming projects that I could participate on and use my existing experience to leverage, making that project successful? So we've done training around the country, really. We've done certainly professional development, career development, but also in emerging technology. So we've done things, as I mentioned, in 3D printing and drones and blockchain and data analytics, and we're just touching the iceberg. There's so many other things that I would like for us to engage with: AI and machine learning, virtual reality and augmented reality. So just a plethora of areas that those of us who have technical degrees, that's why I always laugh. I was like, we are the technical people. If you've got advertising people creating blockchain businesses, I'm pretty sure engineers could do that too.
Right.
So getting folks exposed to those industries. I've got members who haven't even heard, because right now their companies are not in it yet. So they haven't heard of blockchain. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm seeing one here in Houston that we've got members involved, they're getting involved in data analytics and AI. It's a traditional engineering firm. And 10 years ago, they probably never thought they would get into that. They didn't see the application for it in what they do, but it's coming. And so I'm telling as many women as I can is, listen, there's a small window when you could get in, do a little bit of training at your job and be an expert. I'm seeing people with blockchain businesses who've been in business 2 years, and they're the experts. It's like there's a small window when these technologies first hit where you can get in them. I've already moved on to quantum physics. That's the next frontier that we need to be thinking about, preparing, getting advanced degrees in. Because, just like social media and computer science, once the floodgates open, then it's going to be a mad rush by males.
Yeah.
And we're not going to have the leverage that we can when just so few people are familiar with it. Especially some of these roles that are so high paying. Some data analytics that these huge tech firms earn $1 million a year. $1 million a year. And they're not the CEO. They're not the COO.
Right. No, I know exactly what you're saying. And I think that, because we're so the changes in technology are happening so rapidly.
Yeah.
Everything is moving at a faster pace. And so what I hear you saying is that, you graduate even with an advanced degree, you can't just sit on that anymore.
No, you can't.
You have to remain sensitive to the changes that and keep up, with them if you're going to continue to be relevant and competitive. You have to do that and be what is in that space.
Absolutely. I think organizations are no longer telling employees, listen, you need to go and get some certifications in this area to be able to, keep your skills up to date. Right? They're just bringing people in who have them. And so, if you don't have them, that's, no job has ever been safe, right? But I think where both the job, both the employees and the workers have a little bit of more respect for each other, right? Companies knew you just can't do anything to employees, and employees had respect and, came to work on time, left, once the work was done, not before. I think those days are over. So there's no more gentlemen's or gentlewoman's agreement on, how the world works. I mean, these new generations coming in, after baby boomers, they're not giving 2 weeks notice. They're like, I'm done. And they're, sometimes walking away from the job that day with no notice. So I think the world of work has changed. The type of work we do, I'm seeing automation and robotics, take over things that are so mundane no one would have ever. Why would you have I just saw Costco has a robot making pizza. You wouldn't have thought, why does Costco need to have robots making pizza? But when you scratch below the surface, that's a low-skill job, right? You're just doing repetitive things over and over again. You're rolling out the dough, and you're spooning the sauce on top, and you're sprinkling the cheese. You don't have to have a technical skill to do that. That's something, you can not pay a robot because robots are not humans, but you can have a robot to do that, and you eliminate how many jobs you don't have. Benefits, insurance, none of that. They can work 24 hours a day. They don't need breaks, right? They don't come in late. So that is where we're going.
Yeah.
And so
I saw a picture today of a robot in Walmart that was cleaning the floors.
Yes.
And they said that they're buying more.
Of course they are.
Just saw that today, just today. So look at how many jobs that eliminates.
Right? And look at the jobs they're eliminating. Right? Yeah. They're eliminating jobs where those same people can't take those transferable skills and do something else. Right? As an engineer, okay, I don't work in a refinery. I'm going to go work in a chemical plant. I can't work in a chemical plant. I'm going to go work as a consultant. Don't want to work as a consultant. Maybe I'll go back, study, and take the patent bar. But these low-skilled jobs are going to be replaced by automation, and, where you call it robots or automation, it's still the same result. You're going to displace a demographic that doesn't have any other place to use their skills.
Right. And I don't know if it's in where you are, but here I've noticed that the McDonald's and a lot of the fast food places are eliminating workers. You go in and you pick from a menu yourself. You're not placing it with a person.
Absolutely.
You're placing it, and then you go and you pay for it, and then you go pick it up.
Absolutely. This is not new. People just, because more people I think are familiar with technology than they were 10 years ago. But look how long we've had self-checkout. Right. Not a person there. You had one person watching, 5 or 6 registers.
Right.
How many people did that displace?
Yeah.
So, even traditional engineers, once they train robots to do this, and I tell people, don't just train young kids to learn coding, because coding is going to be a blue-collar function.
Really?
It's going to be a blue-collar function because it's repetitive work, right? You can train a robot to write code.
Wow.
AI will teach them how to anticipate things. And if you look at how industrial revolutions occur, right? Like we started in the agriculture, right? So you had people picking food and picking cotton. Then they got the cotton gin, right? So they didn't need those people anymore. So we're displacing people. It's the same pattern happening over and over again. We're displacing people with machinery to do things cheaper, quicker, safer, and those jobs don't come back.
Wow.
Those people have to move into other areas. So coding is going to be the one, like I said, it's going to be a low-skilled tech job where you're going to have to specialize. So you don't just know coding, you can develop software, and then you don't just focus on just one particular, you're agnostic, right? You can work in any platform. So that's, one of the things we're trying to expose those of us who came, I would say, after this digital revolution of the last 10 years, who I took Fortran. I don't even think I could get a job with Fortran anymore. But, things are moving so fast compared to how they were when we were young engineers that you've got to keep up.
Wow. That is amazing. Well, we're like halfway through the time, and there's a big issue, and this is kind of what I think of as our dirty little secret, but I'd really like to spend some time exploring with you the issue of black women not getting along with black women. And, just to share my experience, I'm a senior executive in federal government, and the people that I've had the most difficulty with have been black women. And in terms of sabotage, in terms of, just doing all kinds of crazy things,
Envy, jealousy.
Yeah. And so how do we combat? I mean, it grieves me to no end that, we do this to ourselves. But, how do you counter that? What's the answer? How do we get past that?
I think that's having a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
There's not enough for all of us,
yes.
So I've got to make sure I get mine. And I can only do that if I'm the only one here. There's already 2 of us, so I got to figure out how to get rid of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't say I've experienced it because there's so few of us. There's so few of us in the fields that I've worked. Really haven't had any other. I mean, probably the opposite. If I see a black female working in a refinery, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad to see you. So I probably had the opposite in regards to my actual work experience. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Certainly in grad school, we're all competing for grades so that we can some of us wanted to change careers and get into other industries. So I can see I certainly have seen it. I haven't experienced it in my technical career. But like I said, it's the mindset of scarcity. And the one thing I could say about BWise and even the previous organization that I created called Houston Black Newcomers is when you have a shared focus, people are so busy trying to make that happen that they forget their own personal idiosyncrasies or shortcomings, right? And, we saw that last year, I think, in the election of the congressperson in Alabama, right?
Yes.
I mean, black women in mass went out and flipped that seat. And I can't remember how many decades it had been in the opposite party's control. So when there's something that you can all rally around, there's strength in that. And so I think for me, both because I'm very clear what we're trying to do, I just don't have people who cause dissension. I mean, I would love to say it's my strength and power as a leader, and that they're all fearful of what would happen if they, cause problems. But I don't think it's that. I really think it's like, that's right, I've had a hard time, and I don't want anybody else to have a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to help my sister, or I'm going to help somebody, do better or get exposed or whatever. So I'm not saying we don't have any problems, because certainly I'm not everywhere. I don't know everyone. But I would say by and large, greater than 95% of the people have been supportive, have been helpful. Maybe it's an issue of, I've been so busy, I haven't been able to get back to help this person. But I haven't seen any intentionally malicious, I'm not going to help this person, because if you've had problems in your career, then your focus is on getting some breathing air, right?
Yeah.
You can't, if you throw someone in a swimming pool, they're trying to survive, right? They're not focused on, she's got a cuter swimsuit than I have on, right? They're just trying to keep their head above water. So I think, STEM may be a little different than other areas that, even though NSF says there's 25,000 of us graduating with degrees in science and engineering each year, that's still a small percentage of the total number. So we're still, like I said, the only in these fields. And especially when you start going outside of the traditional areas that we go in, right? So manufacturing and engineering, when you start oceanographers and zoologists, right? There's even fewer of them in those areas. And I think we just have so few of us that we're so grateful to see each other that we don't have that now. I can't say that's going to last forever, because if we accomplish our goals and we get more women of color to stay in STEM, where our numbers are going to hopefully go up, and then maybe some things won't be as perfect or great as they have been. I hope not. I certainly hope that this feeling of sisterhood and unity continues long after I'm gone on to my great reward, and that generations of us are still supportive and encouraging of each other. And I think, like I said, that mentality of I can't let someone else get ahead of me is the root of that. So, I would love for the female accountants to say, you know what, let's start an organization for women of color in accounting. I would love that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the answer. As long as you have people feel like they can't thrive unless they're the only, or they have, and that really is insecurity, right? That's nothing more than insecurity. The one woman who hates everyone else, that doesn't get along. That's, I've always said that's an unhappy person, right? Hurt people. Right. So I think, I think the people who follow me, so certainly on social media, know that I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. But let me flip the question and ask it the other way. Do you get a lot of issues from your, constituents, from your members, who are complaining about they're being depersonalized or being judged on very personal characteristics?
Absolutely.
Is that an issue?
Oh, it absolutely is.
Okay.
Now that I've gotten a certain level of experience, so now it's not just racism and sexism, now it's ageism.
Yeah.
They also have, I don't know if that's a term, lookism, right? So if you're not cute and little and petite and all that, there's a whole nother, sort of issues that come along with that. So we certainly still are, because we're still so rare, right? If you had, 10%, 12%, 15% black women in STEM, and a portion of those wanted to wear natural hair, it would be less of an issue, right? There's so few of us, and then a certain segment that wants to do that when they see it, when the majority sees that, it's shocking. and threatening even. So I absolutely am seeing that. That's one of the things that I want BeWise not to, it's not, it wouldn't be anywhere written down. It's the encouragement to be authentically yourself. If you're the best engineer, the best scientist, the best cybersecurity person, you can show up with purple hair.
Right.
If you can do that work, they're going to be hard-pressed to say, you know what, we would love to have her, but that purple, no, they're going to be like, we would love to get rid of her. We just can't. She's just too bad. She's just too bad. She just knocked it out the park, and we just can't get rid of her. We tried. We can't. She's just too phenomenal. Right? That's what I want. Not that, that's going to, change the world, but I want people to say, like, she's too bad. She's got too much going on.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't change. You can't change people you can't change people, right? Whether they're coworkers or family members or loved ones, you cannot change people. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I want us to get our skills up, right? I think there's a singer that has a song called Level Up. I want us to get our skills to be impeccable. To be, and that's really just building on what we're already doing, because usually we get the worst assignments, the hardest tasks, with the fewest resources, right? The fewest resources, while, other demographics have everything. We've got to rub two nickels together, right? We have nothing. So we're certainly more resourceful, and that's why I want to see more of us go into starting having entrepreneurial endeavors, especially in STEM, right? We are the original makers, right? We are the creators. Yeah. And so, I want us to have every access to every technological advancement, develop ourselves, and then partner and work together. That every year I try to do a word of the year, and I think last year was collaborate. It's always something in regards to working together, because all of us are in this together. A rising tide lifts all boats, and if one of us falls, that impacts the rest of us. So we want to make sure everybody is thriving and doing well. If they want to, if you decide you want to drop out and bake cookies, we want to encourage you and support your business and go get our cookies from you. But we want to encourage each other to be better. And sometimes that's pulling somebody aside, say, hey, that project wasn't up to par. You need to do X, Y, and Z to get it, up to where it needs to be. You're representing yourself, but you're also representing the rest of us, right? And you don't want, and they do that, right? No one ever says, well, this white male did terrible on this project. We can't hire any more white males.
Right.
But they will for us, right? One black female or one female of color does something wrong, and, the last time we hired someone, they didn't do a good job.
Right.
So I want to eliminate all those, and you're still going to have issues. It doesn't mean that you could be the sharpest, greatest, whatever, and you're still going to have jealousy and envy and racism and whatever, sexism, ageism. But that's on them.
Right.
It has nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. But, I think you really hit on something really key, really important when you're talking about the entrepreneurial efforts. I've been teaching my grandchildren to have, as they go out into the workaday world, to think beyond, a 9-to-5 and look at multiple streams of income.
Absolutely.
Think in terms of being an owner, not just a user.
Absolutely.
I struggled with my oldest grandson, who, everything had to be Nike, the most expensive, shoes. And I said, this really doesn't work. You're only looking in terms of consuming. So I went out and I bought him several shares of Nike. But before I did, I said, I need you to research this company. And I want you to tell me where do they get their materials? What charities do they support? How do they operate as a company? And I said, and when you own stock, you now own part of that company. So everybody who's buying shoes from Nike is putting money in your pocket. He was like, oh, my God, really? Really?
That's right.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
So we've got to develop that kind of mindset of not just being a consumer, but being an owner. You know,
creator. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I tell people I am an accidental entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
I don't even have anyone in my immediate family. I think I have an uncle who is an entrepreneur, but I have no one who started a business and ran it for many, many years.
Right.
And I think a lot of us, you know, our parents were, you know, baby boomers or older, and they were the first into the workforce, you know, first college-educated generation in large numbers into the workforce. Both my parents are college graduates, but I have friends whose parents aren't college graduates, but that was the first time that they were able to, you know, buy homes in the suburbs and send their kids to college. So I think, you know, for the folks who, you know, did go into corporate America, both my parents are educators, that it was this, we made it. We got a corporate job, right? And so, you know, I think that drove a lot of folks out of entrepreneurship. But, you know, we know historically that that was the path for success for Black people, is to own your own business in your community. Now, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have, you know, great, you know, community companies. But now that everything is global, right? Why limit just to selling things to people on your block, right?
Right.
Sell it to people across the ocean, or provide services to people globally.
Exactly.
And so I'm hopeful. But that, you know what, honestly, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It doesn't really have anything to do with your background or your intelligence. It really has, I think, as someone called that grit, that you get knocked down 15 times and smile. Like, that's it. That's okay, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yep.
And the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
Right.
Because it is so hard. It is so hard. For every win, you have, you know, 15 rejections. And if you can't make that, if that impacts your psyche, your self-esteem, entrepreneurship is not for you. And because we still have to have people who are actually going to work at these companies, so there's nothing wrong with not being an entrepreneur. And although it seems glamorous and exciting, nobody sees the stuff behind the scenes. And I will tell anyone, think long and hard before you decide to be an entrepreneur, because it is a lonely journey. Even if you have a co-founder, it's a lonely journey. Entrepreneurs have a very high rate of suicide. It's just difficult. It's difficult, and it's not the path for everyone, but for those, and certainly if you've got an idea that could revolutionize something, we need you. We need you to convert that idea into jobs, right? You know, so I love folks who are, I'm an entrepreneur. How many people work for you? Oh, no, none. Okay. I'm going to need you to have some jobs and some well-paying, some six-figure jobs. You have a company that has six-figure jobs? Right. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to see.
Right, and not a hobby, but a real.
Hobby. I just saw something that was so smart, and I wish more people thought this way, because I think, as opposed to saying multiple streams of income, well, what does that mean? Like, where am I going to get these streams from? But someone said, and I hope I can remember it, it was, this is where your money should come from. A third of your money should come from a hobby or something you like to do. A third should come from investment. And then a third should come from your network, right? And I was like, man, that is, I mean, that's, you know, as an engineer, I need direction. Like, I hate a white sheet of paper. I'm like, I need at least 2 data points so I can connect them together. So I think, you know, in addition to encouraging folks to, and it doesn't, you know, you don't have to be, what's his name, Elon Musk.
Right.
We have this idea now that everybody has to be $1 million founder. Well, you know, when your parents were, you know, coming along, they were called business owners, right? Everybody doesn't have to be a founder. Right. You can be a business owner. There's plenty of business owners who's making a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I would encourage people who have the seed, or if it's, you know, something your family has encouraged, you know, figure what you are learning and being exposed to on your day-to-day job. Start off as an entrepreneur. I don't know if anybody has heard that term, but basically it's leadership, right? It's taking ownership of something at your corporation. Say, you know what, from the beginning to the end, I'm involved. I want to make sure this succeeds, and I want to know about all parts, right? So if entrepreneurship is scary to you, but you think you're interested, say, you know what, I'm going to be on this team, and I'm going to be involved, elbows deep, and then say, you know what, in 5 years, I want to own my own business. And so I'm going to start making the connections and getting exposed to things so that I could do that.
Right, yeah. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with the amount of risk that you can tolerate.
Absolutely. But even in that, you know, if you work every day, you're a consultant. I just saw something that said everyone is a consultant now. Even if you work at a job, you're a consultant, right? You're the CEO of your consulting thing. When your costs exceed your revenue, meaning you're making less than you're spending, as a CEO, you may need to evaluate. Right? This client is not making. This client is not keeping me in the black.
Right.
So I'm going to have to get another client, meaning get another job. And so everyone can have a consultancy, and that's to me that's a great way to baby step into entrepreneurship. Yeah. What do you do well right now? What are you known for? What do the people say, Carol? I mean, oh my gosh, you know, give it to Carol. It's going to be fabulous. That's a business right there.
Right. Exactly. So it's not so scary when you do it baby steps.
It's not so scary.
You know, baby
steps. It's not so scary. Absolutely.
Yeah, not so bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, you know, our time is almost up. This was an incredible journey with you, and I really appreciate you giving us a little taste of what Be Wise is doing and how you're helping so many women, you know, around the nation, which my hat is just off to you for all the things that you're doing. But anything that you want to leave our listeners with in our last couple of minutes, any words of wisdom or contact information or anything that you want to share?
Yes, I'll say both. So for anyone who's listening, we are a diverse group, so don't be afraid by the title of our group. We welcome everyone. We have men in our group. We have white women in our group. So please, you know, if you're interested in learning anything about STEM, we do not have a calculus test, so you do not have to be a STEM person to join us. It helps sometimes when we get real deep. But everyone is welcome, so I hope that you all will connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find us on those platforms. I post a lot of things about a lot of different industries and technologies because I just want folks that I'm connected to know what's going on, right? So I'm kind of like a griot in that regard. So please connect with me. And then I guess the two things that I would like to impart people with, I've been talking about one of them for a while, but I just added to that one because I just read a book about the blue zones around the country, which are these areas where they have a large number of centenarians. I think that's what it is, people who are living to be over 100. And the two concepts of the folks that they studied in Japan were ikigai, and I hope I'm saying it right, is a Maori. So ikigai is a Japanese term that's loosely translated to your reason for being. Why do you get up in the morning? Why were you put on earth? What are you meant to do? And how do you determine that? That's what you're great at, what you like doing, what you get paid to do, and what the world needs, right? So just because you may be the champion pizza box folder, right, there may not be a need for that, right? So how do you combine all those things together? And that is what they write books teaching people, right, how to find your purpose. So I encourage people, and I won't tell you how old I was when I found my purpose, but it wasn't too long ago. But I would encourage people, if you could find that, man, right, that's right on up there to curing cancer. If you could find how to be fulfilled before you leave this world. And then the second thing that they found for these folks in Japan was your tribe. These folks who were living to over 100, they had a tribe of people, a community of people that cared about them, that checked on them. So, you know, we're here to fellowship with each other. So find your tribe, whether it be Be Wise or some other organization, I encourage people to find people, not just people who look or think like you, but people who are supportive of what you're trying to do here on earth.
That is excellent last words, and hopefully everybody wants to live to be 100 or old or more. If you're, vital and contributing and, really able to get up and do and continue to impart the gift that God has given you. And, I just want to thank you, Erica, for spending time with us. This has been an amazing hour, and I want to leave the door open and the light on for you to come back anytime you like. I'm sure I'll be able to see you, soon, but it would be great for you to come back and, share, especially if you have regional or, meetings or conferences that our listeners would be interested in attending. I would be glad to talk about that and share the word and how people can get more involved, So
would love that. Would love that. If you need me, I'm a phone call away.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate it. But we'll be part of each other's tribe moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you in my tribe.
Well, thank you. Same here. Absolutely. So, listen, I want to thank you and thank our listeners for being here. And, again, this is Carol Moulton. This has been Tea Time with Carol. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of fear. So we want to thank you for listening. Be blessed. We'll be back again next Saturday, same time, same place. In the meantime, God bless, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.